Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint. Now it gives me great pleasure to welcome into the studio professional artist and personal friend Jeremy Ford as he demonstrates how to use SAA soft pastels to create a spectacular summer meadow in part one of today's Try Your Hand At project.
Thanks, Matthew. We all need a bit of sunshine in our lives, don't we? And I thought it'd be really nice to paint a lovely hot summer's day picture, kind of typical British summer's day, hopefully. I've got my paper stuck to a board, it's just a bit of masking tape, and this is this pastel paper is called Pastel Matte, and it's specially formulated to take chalk pastels, which is what I'm using today. First thing I'm going to do, using the tip of the pastel, is just to draw a line that separates the sky from the land. So around about there we'll have a sort of a dip. I've just pressed very, very lightly with the chalk pastel. Sometimes we use the tip of the pastel, sometimes we use the body of the pastel. And now I'll use the body of a deep blue, just laying it on sideways on. Doesn't really matter which direction I put it on. It's going to be a nice deep blue up at the top, and it'll get a little bit lighter lower down. Now this particular paper limits the amount of dust. A lot of people think that pastel painting or pastel drawing is a bit messy, a little bit dusty and dirty. It needn't be. If you're careful, you don't put too much on, you don't press too hard to start with. You can always add a little bit more. But if you use it sparingly to start with, then there needn't be lots of dust. And this paper grips the pastel really well, so you can build up multiple layers of chalk pastel. Lower down, bit of white. I think we need a little bit more blue up the top there. Just bring a little bit more down here, a little bit more paler blue. And don't try and fill the paper in with the pastel. Now that looks a little bit messy at the moment, a little bit uneven, a little bit blotchy, but hopefully in a few minutes it should look nice and smooth. So now using my fingers, as many fingers as you like, the more you use, the quicker you can do it, working the pastel into every part of the paper. And so that gives us eventually a really nice smooth sky. Now if it's a little bit patchy anywhere, you can just put a little bit more on and then work it in with your fingers. You don't have to work the pastel in with your fingers, it's just that I want to get a really nice smooth and even sky. So put a little bit more pale blue on the lower part of that, and a little bit more white. So there's the beginning of the sky. And now we'll have a few clouds. And I'm imagining the clouds coming down at a slight angle. So I'm going to put the body of the pastel on, not pressing too hard, just very gently, using the white on top of the blue and a few smaller clouds lower down. I'll work that in a little bit with my finger in a minute. Now I'll use the tip of the pastel because I want to get the smaller clouds, thinner clouds, lower down. And one of the hardest things I think about clouds is trying to make them look natural and not too uniform, not too much the same all over. And but the nice thing about this, if you make a mistake, you can just go over it and over it and over it and over it many, many times. This paper will take a lot. It's like card really, but it's got a sort of a cork-like surface. So it will take a lot of work. Now I don't want to work that in too much, otherwise the clouds will disappear. So I'm just using my fingers in the direction that those clouds are going and flattening out slightly towards the horizon. Maybe just a little bit more white. So you can build up layers and you can put light on top of dark, dark on top of light, go backwards and forwards, and it will even take water if you wanted to use water and a brush, and you can even wash it off and dry it and start again. And a few thin clouds, just a few little wispy bits here and there. Lower down. So we've got the blue sky paler lower down because when you, on a clear day, if you look into the distance, the blue is deep, at its deepest, immediately above your head, and it pales towards the horizon. So there's the distant wispy clouds, just work that in very gently. So that's okay for the sky, I'm quite happy with that. Above my initial line, doesn't matter, it's got a little bit smudgy down here. That'll all cover up later on. Now we're going to have a few trees on the top here. So again, I'll use the body of the pastel to start with. I'm imagining a whole line of trees, maybe connected by hedges. So using the body of the pastel and the tip. And again, I've got to be a little bit careful, like the clouds, not to make all the trees the same shape, the same height, and have the same gaps between them. And I'll vary this a little bit with some other colours in a minute. So I'll be, in effect, mixing my colours on the paper, overlaying colours. Some of the colours that you get might not be exactly what you want, but you can overlay colours and work them into one another to get subtle variations. A little bit of pale grey amongst that as well, and just grow some of these trees a little bit more on the right. So I'm not thinking about tree trunks or anything like that, just large amounts of foliage. You know, you can imagine it's a bright summer's day and there's lots of leaves, not much in the way of visible branches. I'm going to put a little bit of dark grey here and there as well. Now using my finger or fingers, I'll use my little finger and just very gently smudge that slightly. I don't want to completely obliterate it, but just work it in. So it's slightly out of focus, a bit hazy. I think perhaps grow this tree on the right a bit more, or trees, a little bit sunnier, a bit more on that side. Right, and then underneath that, using yellow, just go over the bottom of the hedge or trees with the yellow. Using the body of the pastel, and I'll go over that with some of the green from the trees as well, not pressing too hard. And in the immediate foreground, a deeper green. that with some dark brown. And some dark grey. And even some black. Some people say you should never use black, but I don't mind it. I think if it's helpful for you, then why not? As long as it's legal, use it. Right, my finger's a little bit dirty now, so very quickly just get rid of some of that, dip into the water, dry my fingers, and just run my finger along the top there and smudge this in to make it all work together. I want that concentrated light in the distance, and in a little while I'll put some flowers in this meadow, a footpath going through it. But I think that's a good time to stop. So join me later on and I'll finish the lovely sunny summer meadow.
Stunning tips there, Jeremy, always a pleasure. And we look forward to seeing part 2 later on in today's programme. Now, before we take a little break, folks, let's revisit a seascape scene I started in the previous programme and had a bobbing boat to bring the painting to life. So let's push the boat out on this one, and we're going to paint actually a couple of boats. Different sizes. It's amazing what a difference it will give just to add that little bit of movement and bit of life to a picture. It's same as putting a person in a landscape. It makes quite a big difference. The colour we're going to use is actually opaque white for this one. It's like a gouache based medium, very thick, very heavy. Best bit of advice is not to keep it in your palette. You need to squirt it in, and it wants to be fresh every time you do it, otherwise it won't actually work. Once it dries, you can't really get that opacity that you're trying to achieve. I want to use a size 6 brush. I'm just going to clean it. The white paint is the opaque version, so use a titanium white or gouache, or the opaque white is what you're looking for. Chinese white or white watercolour doesn't really give you the strength in colour. And just a little bit of water with it. If you put too much water, the white will disappear on the actual paper. So freshly squeezed is what you're looking for. And because it's thick, I'm going to twist the actual white through the brush. I want to roll the brush through this. It gives a nice point to the end of it there. And we'll paint in a slightly distant boat to start with. And the way we do this is paint quite a thick line on one side and make it really pointy at the top. So like a bit of a sort of bulge at the base there, and then bring it up to a point. Now that's the first part of the boat. And then just put a very thin line just to the side of this. And you can almost see a little boat in the distance now sailing away. If we do a smaller one, just at the side of it, you might want to use a smaller brush for the smaller ones, possibly. And you can see there's a couple of boats there. Notice the bit of a lean to it as well, that gives the movement to it. And then just using a bit of a dry brush on a bit of tissue, just wipe the excess white off your brush. It's quite nice just to put a bit of a reflection just coming straight down from this. Just a little bit of a quick flick, but if you use dry brush, it will help to give that little bit of movement to it. And you can see that reflecting just in the water. As we come further towards the right side, towards the centre, I want to paint a larger one. The white paint dries extremely quick, so just keep adding little bits of water to it. And again, twist it through your fingers, roll it through the fingers, you get that nice point on the end. Let's do a larger one just about there somewhere. You can see it's starting to get dry even at this point. So keep adding a little bit of water, make it larger at the base, and then nice and pointy at the top. And because this one's much larger, it wants a little bit more detail on it. So once I've put that second little sail at the back, I'm also going to lay down just the impression of a bit of a hull at the base there. Again, painted very loosely, wiping the excess away again, and just getting that little bit of a reflection. Very dry flicks for the reflection. Because it's a lot closer, we'll make it more detailed. So if I clean that brush and go for something smaller, like a size 4, and just do the same kind of thing, put the water on, not so much, probably wipe it through the tissue a little bit because you've got water in your paint, you see, and just pick up some of the colour. And then we can just put a bit more detail to this one. I'm just going to make it look slightly more curvy, add a slightly greater point to the top, that sort of thing. So just a little bit of tweaking, and maybe even a bit of a weight coming out the back of the boat as well. Doesn't want much, just a little bit of an impressionist movement or something there. But I'm going to change colours just for the last couple of minutes on this. I'm just going to use some natural grey, and just a tiny bit of natural grey, but quite strong. So a little bit of water, lots of colour. Just take the majority off the actual tissue and add a little bit of detail. So let's say that the light is coming down from this side. On this particular boat, because it's closer to us, I can add a thin grey shadow just to that one side of each of the sails. Then clean your brush, wipe it over tissue, and then just going to slightly soften away the paint and actually blend it in to the white. It blends very easy because the white is very thick. And again, just adding that little bit of detail. For example, this one would want a bit of a mast coming down there, just natural grey. Try and avoid using Payne's grey because it's too black for this sort of thing. Natural grey is so much better. You can see that boat there. And then just a little bit of detail to the bottom of the boat, maybe the hull there. Clean your brush again, wipe it on tissue, and just very lightly soften it into the white again. It all helps. You can see that boat there now. And then just a little bit of a reflection of the mast and a few ripples at the back of the boat. There we go. So that's it, folks, a cracking job, well worth putting them boats in your pictures to give a fantastic scale. Now it's time for a quick break, folks, but join us in part 3 when popular artist Warren Sealey reveals how tonking can solve and correct mistakes made in oils, and Jeremy Ford returns to put the finishing touches to today's Try Your Hand At project. I'll see you after the break.